So the optimal, I guess, way, the way I would have liked to do it was if I recorded this in the very evening, but that would be like the middle of the night for you, so that wouldn't be really possible. Oh well. I think walking out and wrestling some bears, fucking hell, helped me help them get the blood
I think you're
going.
doing better than most, to be perfectly honest.
What?
This is one of the more bullshit Sandy moments in.
Well, I just forgot. I forgot that it didn't teleport me
repertoire.
facing that place, so I'll just go backwards. Okay.
Yeah, it involves a lot of backpedaling.
Yeah.
There
Alright.
we go.
I wonder if there's anything more here, or if this is it.
Ooh, I love a bit of love a bit of scrolling grey vine in the morning.
But it's aligned. What the hell? This is heresy.
Ah, well, yes. As I say,
yeah, this.
Sandy Peterson does occasionally meticulously align stuff. Interesting to note that it's feeding the roots into the pipes. Just use your imagination. I don't know why they would be doing that.
The scrolling, I never saw any instance of scrolling texture in the original Dooms that I could come up with any sort of explanation for. Apart from maybe like in Pandemonium, a couple flashy things that just looked like they could have been rotating or something. There was definitely stuff like that in the original Dooms, and I could never figure out what the fuck they were thinking. Oh well. Definitely warrants a bit of a suicide here. This is going to be my rip-off of the thing you do where you say something in the chat when you really have some opinion about something, like you do a smiley face. This is my way, because of course I have to bind. I have stuff bound for a lot of cheats, different buttons, and of course I felt the need to bind you to suicide for some reason. So now I can do this. Yeah, funny.
Yeah, there we go. In the same way, I guess that Tansman has actually bound one of his keys to MDK, the MDK command. Because he's taken it upon himself to... He's so convinced, and I agree with him, frankly, that there are certain ways in which you should and should not use Barons and Cyber Demons. There we go, you have it as well.
Yeah.
Good man. Good man. I approve.
I originally had it on right mouse button, but then I played some WoD which had alternate fires for weapons, and I had to remap it on the mouse wheel, but it's still there, and I still can do that. Yeah, definitely, this was when I learned about this command, I definitely immediately bound it to the most easily accessible button ever. Of course, also have like the Buddha mode, God mode, give all, kill monsters. What else? No target, freeze, all sorts of shit. I really have troubles with just getting the sheer will and enthusiasm for playtesting my own stuff, and I usually just run through my maps God mode, look and enjoy the feeling that I like how it looks, and then just kind of stop, and that's my bit of mapping for a day, kind of.
Are there people that you usually count on to playtest your maps?
Never. I never have any playtesters. Yeah. Although I do show some stuff periodically to like Hippocat, and but he likes everything, so it's not really well, useful feedback for me. But I definitely, I don't know, I am with my thing, and I hope people excuse me for talking about my stuff here for a while. I definitely feel like I'm making a sort of, well, not the gambit, a gamble, a bit of a gamble with my thing, where I...
Which, by the way, was what this map was going to be called, until somebody said Alfonzo no.
Alright. Nice to know, thank you.
Because that's a verb, you can't turn that into a noun. Well, you can, but you'd be wrong.
But you cannot be wrong, definitely. People never do that.
No such thing as wrong in English, only non-standard.
So, the gamble that I'm taking is I'm doing everything just kind of, I don't know. I have no idea how people will react to everything I did, and some people definitely hate a lot of stuff I did, and I just want to do... It's like when I was in the university, and my approach to the exams beyond just, well, skipping a sleep before, my approach to the exams was usually read the questions, read the material once, and then just have faith in myself that I remembered everything I needed to remember. And just kind of like a challenge for myself, like if I don't remember it, then I guess, well, I deserve to not pass it, or something stupid like that. So,
wow, that's very peculiar.
with my, I don't know, I think I couldn't be arsed to prepare better, more than just reading material once. But I always approached it as like a kind of challenge here and the risk. And similarly with the project that I'm making, of course. Okay, I need to play this first and then speak. I'm just making whatever the fuck I feel like, and I'm very curious about what it actually is going to, how it's going to be, what's the word there? Not taken, not perceived, but if only I remembered all the words I want to use. Perhaps you can suggest, like, received, yeah, there we go, thank you for your help. Received. I'm really curious about how my thing is going to be received. Tarmus is probably going to like hate it completely, and it's probably going to be like his least favorite map set of any ever in Doom ever, or from everything he ever played. I don't know why I think that, but there's a fairly strong feeling I have that this is going to be the case. But nevertheless, I would very much appreciate that if you're still alive in 10 years when I release it, you would like play through it and commentate and stuff. Oh fucking hell.
Oh, but of course, and I very much plan to be alive.
Well, that's good to know, I guess.
The life of a writer isn't exactly very endangering.
Oh well, okay. Well, I'm just saying that because
unless I'm trying to gather source material for a murder case or something, and I end up putting myself.
I was under the impression that living in Australia was a constant like danger to one's life.
Well, there are a lot of glassings, which is a word for drunk partygoers who like to celebrate with glass a little too much.
Oh.
And
I thought it's like it was had more to do with like poisonous spiders and shit. But well,
that too.
That's just stereotypes. We all love stereotypes.
So the ending to this map is, in many ways, very similar to the pit. Just as we drew a comparison with that Tanrock 8 room, I think it was, with all the windows.
I think
so
I stopped paying attention a long time
lost
ago.
effort in this block.
Block?
Because he did the last two Tarnsman maps, the last two maps of Tarnsman's.
And
what is there to say about this one? I mean, there's nothing particularly interesting to say about this one, because in that peculiar Tarnsman fashion, it was one of the ones that he came up with very quickly, and then there wasn't really much to correct about it. He deliberated over certain things, perhaps being, he wanted to place more emphasis on the reservoirs themselves, the namesake structures that he has in this map, because they weren't centerpiece, they were optional areas. But in the end, it didn't really end up being changed all that much at all.
I have a very useful and interesting, dare I say, bit of observation here. I seem to have noticed that there were a lot of this thing, which is like the beginning of map 01 from the original Doom. This angled staircase thing, like the beginning of the map 01, the original map 01 entryways. And there was like 3 of them by now in this playset, and this definitely felt like a reference each time, which is kind of weird. Because I think it was only once in the original game or something, maybe twice.
It's possible that Tarnsman knows of some that I completely forgot about, since I wasn't really concerned with angled staircases at the time.
I know, just this thing, every time I see a staircase like this, it feels like, oh, do you remember that part in map 01?
I think it might have been subconscious, unless, like I say, Tarnsman was aware of something that I wasn't, or someone else.
Well, yeah, there's definitely a possibility that this kind of thing that you just don't notice about stuff you make yourself. So you're not really I mean, when you make something, you have an image in your head of what you are trying to do. At least I hope people do that. And even if it doesn't turn out exactly like you imagined it before you started doing it, you still probably perceive it a bit biased in that way, that you still think it looks more or feels more or is more like what you were trying to do than what you actually managed to do. So maybe if one wasn't consciously making this an element of the original Doom 2 design, it probably just still would say no, it's completely generic and doesn't feel like map 01 at all. Okay. I know something about this building.
The item placement here. This is what we like to call sandy vomit.
Courtyard?
Sandy vomit, or sandy projectile vomit indeed. the sort of radius at which he spews things. Typically in his E2 maps, or any map really in which he's given enough space to do so, he'll be scattering little items to collect around. I mean, you can think of maps like the Courtyard or Suburbs, things like that. I mean, very easy thing to note.
Why?
Well, it's so obvious.
Yes.
Well, I mean, what's going on there, Antroid?
I was looking at the... Well, like,
the art.
This here, no, not the art. This lower texture makes more sense, but here, why? Why? How? Well, I guess it's a case of...
You can't select a texture that matches the sand.
Yeah,
that
that's...
would be sacrilege.
Yeah, I guess... still one of the weirder selections for this blind, if I say... Okay, whatever. Which map is it? 10, okay.
One thing that Doom 2 taught me and many of the other contributors to appreciate more was certain textures as structural textures rather than transitional, such as in the case of Support 3. Sometimes, particularly McGee, we saw it in map 5 for example, Rivera loved to do it, just using Support 3 as a wall texture, not necessarily to separate two different textures. Sandy Peterson sometimes did this. In Doom 1, for example, in the E2M3, there's the Support 3 corridor, which is marvelous if I do. Completely pointless, I don't know why it exists. In fact, that might have been Tom Hall's doing, but there it is in all its glory. A windy, pointless hallway of Support 3 that contains absolutely nothing. And it looks great. I love me some Support 3.
Well, me too. I think, well, of all the... some of the Doom textures, I think that's one that's the least, I don't know, strange like that to use on a big wall, because you could imagine it's like wooden planks but metal, and it feels like a bit of not just some really ridiculous, stupid, like the stone garg, big rooms with stone garg, where you say, yeah, this obviously the author wasn't thinking of how it would feel in the if you were imagining yourself in this place, blah blah blah, stupid. But I know that when Support 3 is used as like a wall texture, it feels like a bit of a surreal place, which I definitely like a lot. But why would someone construct a area out of vertical planks of metal? And it's one of those cases where I don't think, well, the author was on crack, and instead I think I get a bit immersed and say, ooh, this is strange, why would anyone build something like this?
Rivets everywhere, rivets.
Wait a no, wait, no. Wait a I do recognize this now, I think. Was this map featured in one of the streams? I think it was. I definitely recognize. I definitely recognize. Yeah, I definitely recognize it now.
Did you watch it close to when it was broadcasted? Because during the
no idea.
The development process, we would have streamed maps individually, but chances are that we would not have streamed this unless we were playing most of the maps in.
Well, there was like you had a lot of recorded streams of like one map, playing one map to see how it feels, like judging the first impression for the. And I think it was not.
It's probably for testing.
It was it wasn't in the that section of Twitch TV where you put the things that you like name and want people to watch. It was in the section where just everything is stored, and I of course watched through that afterwards to make sure I didn't miss any second of your streams. But definitely now that I look at it, maybe it looked a bit different, or maybe I'm misremembering, but I definitely recognize this part. For some reason I thought there was a yellow door. Well, okay, whatever. I definitely recognize, and I think you're actually, or you might have been saying about this map that doesn't really feel like anything from Doom 2 or something like that. I remember feeling defensive about, because I liked it. If it was this map, I liked this map in the stream, and I was feeling a bit defensive because it felt like it wasn't going to be included actually.
Oh, right.
Might be this.
I might actually be wrong then in saying that it didn't undergo many significant changes. Either that, or I just changed my mind over time.
Because I remember there's like a square, the big square around, and I remember this area, I think, that like between two high building-like things, and walls and shit, and I don't know. I think it was originally, it might have been a city map. Is it possible?
It is possible. I'm not entirely sure, but it is possible that it might have been slated for inclusion in episode 2.
I think when I watched that map which I'm talking about, which I think that was definitely a city map with a city sky. So if I'm right, that this was because these columns look familiar for some reason. Maybe because I saw them before. That's definitely a possibility. But yeah, that's.
Well, there is another Tansman map in the map 15 slot, which is you might be thinking of that map instead. Perhaps.
Well, I think we'll have
a look.
Map 15. Surely it is bigger than this at large. And
it's probably slightly larger than downtown. Yeah.
Well, I think I think I'm thinking of this map because it was also kind of this size, and not a very big map. Certainly, I think. Yeah, and this thing I think I reckon. Yeah, definitely that one.
Okay, yeah, these are the eponymous reservoirs. One of those rare instances in which you can actually pick out what Sandy's talking about in the title, in the map.
I think I learned the word eponymous from your streams also.
Oh yeah.
There was a bit somewhere early on where either Tarsman or you were being like English majors, and there was eponymous and some other word which either of you complained that people used it in place of eponymous and it was mistakenly used, and like eponymous is the word that you should.
The titular.
Yeah, that definitely, yes, of course, yes, titular. And I was like, no, that's not what titular means, it's eponymous. And I go, oh, cool. Sounds like the horse name from Legend of Zelda, so I remember that word.
What really ticks me off is when certain folks say, the phrase is tittle tattle, tit for tat. Well, it's and titbit. Titbit is what you should be saying. Really, that's the correct word to say.
I cannot say I've ever heard that.
Titbit with a D.
Oh.
Really sets me on edge.
Also, by the way, I am one of those people, I don't know, the word irony and ironic and what it means. I am every time someone corrects someone like, this is not irony, that's like, I want to just rage about, like, come on, everyone thinks that irony means that, please just let it mean that and give it a rest. Like when someone says this is ironic, and no, ironic is in you like something ironically, that's how you use irony. When no, it's like, yeah, I have strong opinions about the word ironic, you can see. So yeah, here's
another BFG, and it's remarkable, maybe to some, it could be an obvious point to others, how often, how easily they're given away in Doom 2 past a certain point. It's almost like they're a standard weapon. I think there's only 4 or 5 maps after map 8 in which the BFGs not feature.
I really don't remember the game that well to know anything about that.
That's just a titbit of information.
Thank you.
And I'll be throwing out these tits all the time.
There's definitely not enough tits in this Let's Play so far.
Not enough birds. Get the blue tits in.
Yes. So. I think I remember something about one of you said like the crate rooms. Like
yes.
Crates were only in specific rooms about
right,
that.
In a cold sweat, and said, we're missing a crate room.
It was interesting because I didn't really pay attention to that kind of stuff, but one of you pointed out that in the original games crates were really just confined to specific crate rooms and not like everyone uses them, like, oh yeah, let's throw a crate.
No, that's right, yeah, that is right. There's a dedicated crate room, and in fact I can't think of anywhere where a crate is used outside of a crate room in Doom 2.
And I bet someone put that key there in a cheeky way, like, let's use the key, like, whoever used the key like that, used the keys, like, put them in somewhere not on a pedestal and completely unremarkable corner. That was definitely on purpose.
Well, that's a very Sandy thing to do.
Yeah.
You just get the key and stuff it in a completely unimportant location. I mean, you think about the yellow key, for example, in map 18, Courtyard, which is just crammed into a corner.
If only I remember that map at all.
Unceremoniously, it's like, someone kicked the football into the hedgerow and just left it there.
Well,
shit. That's the yellow key.
From the perspective of realism, of course, it would be more realistic to find keys randomly flying somewhere maybe next to some corpse, then being put on a pedestal, because who would go about putting keys on pedestal? That was just dumb. There's a bit of me being me there. Approaching Doom with ideas of what would be realistic in a level like this. Definitely keys in random corners is something that... Yes.
It's kind of a trivial place to find realism in Doom.
This only make or break the immersion in some cases. There's just normal, absolutely normal map, and then you find the key on a fanciful pedestal and no, this is where my suspension of disbelief can't take me. Fuck it, 1 out of 10 again. Stop. Hello, goodbye. Okay, what do I... Huh. By the way, that thing that I said about, I think, around the beginning about map 3 or map 2 or map 4, where every map feels, even though there's obviously the idea of reservoirs here, a lot of maps feel so far like they have a lot more like styles and elements mixed in each one than Doom 2 maps ever had. Kind of like more diverse each one. Because
Messelfordium's map 3, for example, is completely that sort of sewer brick 10. Sorry, brick 12, I think, something like that, whatever. Which is obviously thematically different, and I think Doom 2's American McGee's Doom 2 maps in episode 1 were pretty consistent, and brown as hell. And so in that way, I think we did change it up a little bit, but I don't think that's a problem. It's kind of similar to the inmost dens and abandoned mines element.
I wouldn't say it's like a problem, but that's a thing. I think initially most it happens when there is a community project and a person wants to make a map for a project, and he wants to not just make some little map, but he wants to include everything he can, every idea he has at the moment, and that leads to when community project is made by a lot of people who, some of them only make one map for it. A lot of those maps are just everything at once, and to some extent this kind of does the map set so far, but from a couple maps definitely feels a bit more. I know this for me it makes just the maps like apart from a couple I wouldn't remember very well the maps so far by themselves. I wouldn't, if you showed me like an area or a couple areas, I wouldn't be able to say if they were in the same map or in different maps.
Hello. I mean, I don't think there's much I could say in response to that. You know, given the amount of time in which you've been able to familiarize yourself with something like Doom 2, doesn't matter how accurately we represent
that probably would never happen even if you did completely.
That thing's just never going to be there, you know.
Yeah, and that's I guess one of the things that you can never replicate when you're trying to do something in the style of an old game, because you definitely approach those games in a different way. There was like, definitely for a lot of people there was a point before the internet or before they just had a lot of games where every single game they had, they felt more important about, the game felt more important, and like probably like there was one new game for a year and they definitely played it through and through and beat it a couple times and stuff like that and replayed it. And the new stuff that keeps coming out today, it just doesn't happen anymore. And I know, and this is actually, I guess, maybe why people don't take many risks with mapping, with including stuff that would put some people off, which in old games you just kind of had to deal with it, but now you can just I have 1,000 more maps to play if I so choose. Let's not... Okay.
That's right, that's the one of the... Fuck me, sideways. It's one of the wonderful things about belonging to a community of a game where it's so prolific for all the stuff. You can afford to be really picky. I think I said this before, didn't I? Yeah. You can afford to hate stuff because there's just that much to choose from.
Okay, I am once again lost. Let's see. Yeah, I actually I'm not sure if I actually am very fond of the fact that there is so much stuff, because it makes, unless it's just like something that really stands out, really stands out somehow, the sheer amount of stuff that's out there makes every one thing of all that stuff a lot less significant. And like,
well, I think there's a good and bad way to be prolific. and I think I would agree that to a certain extent, the way in which some material is put out, rather than being laboured a little bit more, or it's a strange word to use, I guess, but marketed even a little bit more, rather than sort of, it's almost as though the developers sort of want to adhere to the kind of proliferation of new material in a standardized way, rather than actively trying to change things. And so in that respect, just constantly coming out with new material in a cookie-cutter regime, just to call it something, is a little bit bland. But I mean, I can't complain about it, honestly. And I mean, if you were to put a gun to my head and ask whether, you know, the quantity of stuff coming out of the gem community is a good thing or a bad thing, I could only give you one answer and say it's yes. I could be picky about it, but I'm not going to complain.
Well, I guess as someone who doesn't really play as much, I'm not that delighted by that fact, because from the point of like a mapper, I am, well, not like with the single maps that I contributed to other projects, but from the point of view, I always liked spending like 5,000 years on the project, but making like my life's work, even though I never finished one of those ever. But I think, no, actually I did a couple of hacks for Super Mario World, which really didn't get much of notice, but I definitely poured some work into them, which didn't really go anywhere in the end. And from that perspective,
you should stream some of
I
it.
feel, well, no, how about no?
I think not.
As a mapper, I mean, that thing, my thing that I'm making, of course, I would hope that it gets enough attention and people like discuss it and stuff, because there's like a story there and a lot of symbolism and shit. And I just know that when let's be optimistic, when I release it, there's going to be like 2 pages of nice, I like that level, okay, and that's going to be the extent of it, and that's going to completely disappoint me horrendously. But I feel that's the consequence of when there's a lot of stuff. If you just are not in the mood, or the thing that you're playing is not, interesting, is not completely to your tastes, you just aren't as curious about it. You just, I'll play some other thing, and that thing which you might have had interesting thoughts about it, or you might have reached a later level and liked it a lot and had a lot of things to say about it, and that just will not happen if you abandon it early, and it's easy to abandon stuff with so much choice. So from that perspective, I guess I am not a fan of the fact that there is such a choice, but I guess it's, first of all, I can't really do anything about it, and second of all, I guess maybe most people like you like it. I've read a story once when I was in a hospital. It was this, like, Soviet era sci-fi about the future, of course, well, obviously, and
well, they do great sci-fi.
yeah, that was I love Soviet sci-fi, but nevertheless, this story idea was that there was like too much literature or something in the world. There's like too much information for people to process in their lifetimes, and a lot of great works of art, a lot of old like classics of literature just completely fell out of the public eye, and no one really cared about them anymore. And there was like one guy that felt like that was unfair, because those classics are classics and shit, and he just re-released them under his own name, and therefore making people read them because they thought it was new, and no one even recognized them. And then he was just confronted like by some journalist who was investigating that, and like, why did you do that? And he said like, I wanted to give these things a second life because they deserve it. And because
well, you can give something a second life in more than one way, of course, rather than just simply re-releasing it under a different author or a different name.
But yeah, well, unless it's like an instant classic in the Doom community, I feel like something is released, for a couple of weeks people play it, and then everyone forgets about it forever.
But of course, even if something was released completely unchanged, it would be released into a different environment, so it would mean different things and have a different impact. So in a sense, you're not really releasing the same thing at all.
Well, yes,
in that
kind
sense. If that makes sense.
I don't know, I hope, for my particular case, I just hope that I am loud enough on the forums that people are going to be curious about something that I've made. And
well, I'm definitely curious about your opinion, precisely because it falls into and you fall into so much conflict, so many individuals. It makes me
well, but
back my ears.
a lot of people probably are going to just a lot of people are probably going to just I don't know, go about my thing eventually with just finding more fault in it than they would have otherwise, because I'm kind of notorious for disagreeing with people. They go like, oh, Antroid. Like the first thing I think Tarsman, when he was streaming the alpha of Doom 2 in name only, the first thing one of the first things he said when he entered map 4 was like, hey Antroid, I'm not feeling a lot of immersion here, what's up with that? And like, I feel like everyone is going to do that sort of thing instead of, like, you actually, a lot of times when he says something, you say something. What you say is usually something that I would have wanted to say if I was there. So thank you for being in your own streams, I guess. But
rest assured, if I agreed with him, I'm sure, as you know, I'd be very emphatic about it. You know,
yeah,
I'm sure to speak my mind.
And
I like to think I'm not at all influenced by Tansman's quite adamant opinions. He's very strong-minded. That's I mean, that's what I like. I mean, that's kind of why I'm on this you know, co-commentating with you at the moment. I think it's very important to recognize other people's opinions, and especially when we're in the position of supporting a game like Doom, which has a growing history. You know, you want to promote that, and you want to recognize all possible differences rather than keeping things stagnant by, you know, trying to follow one viewpoint constantly.
Okay, I'm lost, by the way.